box once it goes live?
Yeah.
So I can read. Okay.
Yeah.
When I get nervous, I can't listen. Sometimes.
There we go. All right. It says we are live. I'm sending you over the thing right now on Twitter. There's that. So make sure it is muted. All right, it is muted. So what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another stream. It has been a long time since I've done a stream. This week I've been taking, not necessarily taking off, but I wanted to do my 40-hour language challenge, the full-time study in a week, as mentioned by Languuge Come Up and Lamont from Days in French and Swedish. But I am back with another interview here, and I'm super happy about having Natalia on here.
Hi.
I'm assuming, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is.
I'm always really odd about the way I pronounce people's names after Valeria, because I thought her name was Valerie for a long time, and then I realized there was an A on the end, so I was like, oh, Valeria, and she was like, oh, nope, that's still wrong. And so now I'm always like really self-conscious about the way I pronounce people's names, but
I get nervous too.
But yeah, thank you for joining the stream. Do you want to do just a small introduction or anything about who you are and what you do? And
yeah, sure. I will do my YouTube intro. Hopefully that's not weird.
No.
But 안녕하세요. It's Natalia. So my channel is all about encouraging people to believe in their ability to learn Korean, especially those that are self-studying. So I've been learning Korean for 4.5 years now, and the first year was spent studying abroad in Korea. So I just like sharing my knowledge with other people and meeting people that are interested in learning Korean. So that's what my channel's about.
What I like about specifically your channel is, even though I'm not actively studying Korean, most of what you say, I mean, I guess you could really pinpoint this on a lot of channels, but so much of what you say can be, I mean, it's so useful for every language. Like, you have a very good outlook on languages and stuff.
Thank you.
So, you now, all right, so I know that a lot of this stuff is stuff that you've touched on before in videos, I'm sure.
Sure.
But I'm hoping I don't misremember things here, but did you say that you were interested in Japanese before Korean?
Oof. Okay, so I guess you could say technically it was Chinese first, then Japanese, and then Korean.
Okay.
But I never fully or diligently studied Japanese. It was like in high school I tried to teach myself Japanese. I didn't know how to learn the language on my own, so I didn't get very far.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I guess you could say I dabble in the language now, but it's not something that have very like serious goals for.
Gotcha.
At the moment.
Gotcha. What was your initial interest in Chinese?
I just thought it was beautiful. I remember being in 6th grade, going to like the Scholastic book fair and seeing this book saying like learn Chinese, and I just was like, wow, and I just wanted to start learning. It was just like that, and luckily my parents bought me the book, and I tried to teach myself at that time as a 6th grader. Again, didn't get very far, but I started taking Chinese classes in high school, and I studied Chinese in university as well. So it was just, it was different. I liked it because it was different. It wasn't like Spanish or French where I already had some kind of idea of what the language was like.
Gotcha. I gotcha. What is your Chinese level now? Have you forgotten most of it, or do you still use it?
I would say I would now be upper beginner in Chinese. Once I went to Korea, like when I came back, my level had dropped so much that I couldn't continue taking classes because I would have been below all my classmates, and I just wouldn't be able to handle it. So yeah.
So with your Korean, do you think in terms of, like, this is always a question about Chinese, do you think that the tones are harder than, say, like what the grammar like, would you rather have to learn the tones or the crazy grammar patterns of a language like Korean?
I guess tones. Because for me, tones, I try to just learn the rhythm of the sentence, not necessarily focus on each tone, because when I do that, I end up just slowing my sentence down.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I've ever been at a level in Chinese where I noticed when someone else's tones were wrong, or even when I was speaking to Chinese people, they never laughed at me or didn't know what I was saying because of my tones. So maybe my sentences were just that basic that my tones didn't matter. But yeah, I think probably tones. Good tones.
No, I think like they're not like. I think people put too much emphasis on how hard they are. Like, they're difficult, but I definitely don't think it's like the end of the world. Like, it's one of the easier things.
Yeah.
And like, and I would rather have to learn tones than have to study verb conjugations.
Mm. Yes, for sure. I remember when I first started learning Korean, I had already been studying Chinese for 4 years, and I never expected to be learning Korean. It was just because I was gonna, there was a study abroad location switch, and suddenly I was going to Korea instead of
Hmm.
China. And I knew I wanted at least some level of like immersion where I could communicate. So I
Yeah,
started learning Korean. And when I found out I had to conjugate things, I was not a happy camper.
yeah,
I had been spoiled by
yeah,
Chinese.
yeah.
It's
What's
not.
so you're I'm trying to think here. So you went over as a study abroad, right? Did you go to
Yes.
Seoul?
No, no.
Okay.
I was in a different province actually. So I was, I guess the biggest city closest that I was close to was Cheonan. So if you've seen Busan Hing or Train to Busan, it's that first stop where they're on the train and they're like, "Don't open the doors." I'm that stop.
Okay.
So
Fair.
not too far. Just like,
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So you were not. I just always assume. I mean, like, because you always hear people going to Korea. It's kind of like when people talk about Japan. It's like, oh, what are you in Tokyo? And it's like, no, I'm in Nagasaki, Nagoya, Fukuoka, whatever. There's so many different cities, but like,
right.
you just associate this one city. When my friend was over there, he was in uh, man, it was super far south. I don't remember what the name of
Busan?
it. No, it wasn't Busan. It started with a G.
Gwangju?
It may have been Gwangju, actually. Hold on.
Gwangju.
I'm pulling up Google Maps. This is so
Yeah,
irrelevant.
go for it.
It's
While you
irrelevant.
do
I guess,
that,
but
I'm gonna pull up the chat
okay, okay.
because I can't. You do.
Let's see.
I'm
South
multitasking
Korea.
here.
Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. As soon as I saw this, I knew exactly what it was. He was in Daegu.
Ah, Daegu.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. I've been to Daegu. It's nice.
Yeah, yeah. He was in Daegu. So and he enjoyed it. And he went over to teach English. So when you went as a study abroad, like what was your like because we briefly chatted before this, and you talked about like so many people go to Korea or any country for teaching English, but like what was your like going over as a study abroad? Like what was kind of your end goal? Was it just the idea of going and studying abroad and then coming back, or like what did you kind of have in mind? Like what did you think this experience was going to be like?
Well, I had been planning on going to China since I was in high school.
Hmm.
So I was ready for China. It was, I'm going to get so much better at Chinese. I already speak like low intermediate Chinese. I want to come back being able to speak. And then due to circumstances, I couldn't go to China, and Korea looked like a great option.
Hmm.
And so for me, I just wanted to learn as much as possible, I guess, and I wanted to not just hang out with other international students. I wanted to go out and make Korean friends and try to learn, I guess, the Korean way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I started intensely studying the language before I got over there. And then once I was there, I took intermediate Korean courses.
Hmm.
So I guess you could say my goal when I was coming back was to be able to at least speak some level of Korean that matched my Chinese
Okay.
in a way. Yeah.
Do you think that you accomplished that?
Um,
I know it's
yes
a it's a
and
it's a whole
no.
different. I know it's a whole different ball game. Like,
Yeah,
but
I'm thinking just because the way they teach Korean in Korea is so different than the way I was being taught Chinese in the United States.
mm,
So what I thought was intermediate in the United States, if I put it in, like I guess in retrospect, it's nowhere near intermediate
mhm.
compared to the way Korea teaches Korean. I guess my definitions of intermediate have changed through that experience. So I guess like you could say I came back maybe knowing more Korean than I knew
Whoa.
Chinese before I went to Korea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how did they teach?
It was very classroom based. So I had Korean Monday, Tuesday for 3 hours in the morning. So I guess 6 hours a week. And it was like we would go through one chapter in the textbook during those 6 hours, and you needed to learn 250 vocab words a week.
Ugh.
And they would give us all this homework, and it was a lot. It was definitely like an intense, I guess, situation. Not situation. That's not the right word, but
Just
experience. It was
yeah.
very like so by the end of that course, you're supposed to be ready to take upper intermediate Korean classes and pass topic level 3, which was not, I was not there, but it was completely different from in the United States. In the United States, my Chinese class was very laid back. We learned, but it wasn't a stressful environment as opposed to Korean, where I felt all my time was being spent learning Korean, even when I wasn't in class.
Yeah.
So, and my study abroad experience actually wasn't to learn Korean. It was technically it was a cultural internship program. That's what they called it.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't even supposed to be focused on like intensely studying Korean.
Gotcha. Okay. What? Also, there's a couple of people saying hello here. Welcome everybody who is watching. Don't forget, as always, I don't have the chat on the screen anymore just because the last, like 2 live streams ago, there were some people that got into a squabble, and I just don't want that going on the side there. So, but the chat is still here. You guys can still ask questions and all that stuff, and I will see them. So, hold on, man, I had a train of thought there, and I was gonna ask a question after that, but then I wanted to just say that. What was I thinking here? You were talking about taking the... Oh, I know what I was going to say. So do you think, like... Because I know that there's theories to this, and that is the idea that you can study lightly and try to learn everything you know, or you can throw so much at your brain that something has to stick. Like, do you think that overexposure to it may have helped you get a little bit further advanced, or do you think you would have been more beneficial? Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it makes sense in my brain what I'm saying, but like basically, like, for example, if you're trying to learn 250 vocabulary words a week, right? A lot of people learn 10 words a day. 10 words a day is 70 words a week. If you learn 250 a week, you're probably going to learn more than 70. You may not learn all 250, but you'll learn more than 70.
Right.
Like, do you think that that was any kind of beneficial, or?
For
Sorry,
me, I knew
I'm
it
really
wasn't
bad at
possible to
articulating my thoughts. Sorry.
No, you're okay. I am too. But I never tried to learn all 250 words because to me that was impossible. So I would actually take the vocabulary list and pick the ones that I wanted to learn, which would end up being around 100, and I would focus on those.
Okay.
So, but I do think the fact that they had such high expectations for us, for me, pushed me to study harder. Like with Chinese, I probably could have been studying that hard for 4 years and come out knowing a lot more if they had just pushed us harder.
Yeah.
Where in Korea it was like, you're here, you're going to learn, and
Right.
they kind of force feed you in a way
Yeah.
to start learning.
So-
And yeah, sorry.
I think. Well, I was gonna say. I think a lot of that is just the difference in the cultures, right? Because like in America, we're very, you know what? That's okay. Don't worry about it. Look, we know that you literally failed every single thing that you did, but you're probably good enough. It's okay. And in Korea, like education and stuff is an insanely intense and very like
Yes.
like you don't mess around with it. So I mean, I'm assuming a lot of that's probably just cultural difference.
And I know for us, they actually graded us on a bell curve. So
Okay.
you could be making A's the whole semester, but if someone was making higher A's, you could end up with a B. So it was a lot of pressure, I guess. So I went into that class wondering how I got into intermediate level because I had started studying Korean in January. At the time I only knew Hangul. And so I started self-studying in January, and then by the end of February, I was in Korea taking a placement test, and then they put me into the first semester of intermediate classes. So I felt like I had such strong imposter syndrome compared to my classmates. They all do all these words that I didn't know and grammar structures I didn't know, and the class was being taught in full Korean. And I remember thinking, I have no idea what the teacher's saying. I'm going to have to Google everything. I don't know what's going on, and I felt like I shouldn't be in that class, if that makes sense. Like I wanted to be there, but I was definitely like out of all the students' abilities, mine was at the lowest.
Yeah.
So it was constantly like trying to catch up, but also get ahead at the same time.
Yeah. Do you think that drove you to be better? Like that idea of like I'm not going to be this far behind, quote unquote?
Yes, personally, yes, because I wanted to learn. I think if I'd been someone that wasn't necessarily interested in learning Korean, I probably would have just like drowned.
Right.
But I remember thinking, no, I came to Korea, so I'm going to learn Korean and we're just going to make it work.
Yeah.
So for me, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it did push me to work harder.
Let's see. There's a couple things that came through here on the side of us. Those.
Okay.
How different is Korean from North and South? I'm assuming he means dialects. Do you know much about that?
If you mean North Korea, I never even went to the border, so I can't answer that. Yeah, sorry.
There's a really cool video, Ryan. If you just YouTube it, Go Billy Korean has a video on the difference of North and South Korean dialects. You can check that out.
Yeah,
Ross says, "What method did you use to learn those vocab words?" That's a good question. Oh, that's one of my biggest things I like to
sure.
talk to people about is how in God's name because everybody learns vocab differently.
Sure.
So how are you learning those words?
I love memorize, so I was
Hmm.
taking those words and putting them in a memorize list and going through them. And then, of course, I got exposure to those words being used in the classroom through our homework, the exercises our teacher was giving us, and
Hmm.
things like that. And then, of course, trying to use them myself, but not nothing too special. Nothing too
Gotcha.
special.
And that actually talking about hearing them in context, like via like questions and stuff, that is actually a good lead into the next one. Cloudy Howdy says, "How much does Natalia know about MIA, and what is her opinion on the role large amounts of input play in learning Korean?"
So I don't know too much of MIA or about MIA. I only know what I've heard you talk, I guess what I've heard you say.
Mhm.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it means mass input.
Uh,
I don't know what that is.
mass immersion approach is a
Mass immersion. Okay, mass
yeah.
immersion approach. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But I think it's very, very important. That's usually what I actually do when I start learning a language. So it's all this listening comprehension at the beginning because I just want to get used to what the language sounds like.
Hmm.
Try to pick up where the word stops and where a new one starts and
Hmm.
get the intonation down.
Right.
So I like that. Now I'm actually having to focus more on input than I was in the beginning because I've noticed that my vocabulary will be up here, but sometimes I don't recognize the word fast enough during like actual conversations,
Hmm.
or during like listening practice things like activities. For example, I'm getting ready to take the topic, so
Hmm.
there's a whole listening section, and sometimes they'll say a word, and when I write it down, what I'm hearing, I know the word, but I don't recognize it immediately,
Yeah.
like during the dialogue. So I'm trying to work on that.
Right.
So very
Not.
important. I think it's very important.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I've been doing it for almost 3.5 months now, and it's made like I thought my Japanese listening was solid before I started, but I had no idea how bad it was until I see where I'm at now, and I know that in another 3 months I'm gonna be like, "Whoa, dude, you weren't even okay then," like because every day like it sound now I may not know what they're saying, but in certain like if I had to look up a word, I could because I can hear it so clear.
Right, right,
So.
right. And I know with the immersion that I have done, or the input that I guess, listening practice that I've done, I've actually learned some words and grammar points without recognizing it.
Mhm.
For example, I have an italki tutor, and she'll show me a grammar point that I've never seen before. And once she starts putting them in sentences, I'll think, oh, I've been using that for at least a year. I didn't know why I was using it, but I was using it. And it's amazing to me that I learned that just through listening and
Mhm.
hearing other people use it. So I
Yeah.
think it works.
How early do you think is too early to get a tutor? Or do
I
you think
think
that is too early?
I think it really depends on the person. So
Mm.
for me, I don't really see a personally, I don't see a benefit of getting a tutor in the beginning
Mm.
because to me that's stuff that I can do on my own. The only reason I would get a tutor in the beginning is if I am not fully dedicated to learning the language and I need someone to help me stay accountable.
Mhm.
So for Japanese, I actually found an italki tutor to work through the Genki book with me just so that I'll have someone that says, "Hey, we're studying Japanese right now."
Right.
So I'll put down my Korean. But for Korean, I didn't need a tutor in the beginning. Now I like the aspect of she's speaking to me in only Korean and explains everything to me in Korean. It
Mhm.
gives me the opportunity to, I guess, have conversations and practice with someone that will actually correct me.
Mhm.
So I think at the intermediate level, it's really nice and beneficial. And then at the beginner level, it's really depends on you and if you need someone to help you
Yeah.
stay accountable or what kind of learner you are too. But personally, I enjoy learning to do self study at the beginning.
Yeah. I think that's a good point too, because I just going off of an assumption here, I assume Korean is probably very similar to Japanese in that textbook and written Japanese is incredibly different from the way it's spoken. And I would I mean not necessarily assume, but like I would say Korean just based on how similar they are. It's probably somewhat like I'm sure the spoken language is a bit different from what is like even what is taught in textbooks and stuff.
Yeah, I know for I mean I've only done the first 4 chapters of Genki, so I don't have a lot of knowledge of Japanese.
Mhm.
But just what we have covered right now with the tutor, she kind of looks at me sometimes and is like, "Why do you know this already?" Or "Why did you understand that so quickly?" And I'm just thinking, There's the same thing in Korean.
Korean. Yeah.
Like I it didn't take me that long to get the idea of it. I mean, the pronunciation and being able to actually use it myself will be different, but
Yeah.
I understand how it's supposed to work. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I'm hoping that's what happens when I pick up Korean, because I'm it's back and forth right now between whether I want to go into Mandarin or Korean next. I was thinking Mandarin because of how hard Japanese is, and I'm thinking like, oh, maybe that'll be like a break. But at the same time, if my Japanese gets to a good level, why not utilize that while it's at its height to learn another language that's almost identical,
Similar.
grammatical and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, Genki, have you seen any? I talk about this dude all the time. I feel like a shill for the guy, but have you seen Tokenie Andy on YouTube?
I watched your live with him, but I haven't actually watched any of his videos.
He does every other Sunday. Well, he does live streams every Sunday morning. Like, well, Sunday morning for us. It's at like 8:30 my, so 7:30 a.m. your time. But I mean, you can watch him on repeat. But
Yeah.
he, like one week he has like an entire presentation of the lesson of Genki, and he teaches the entire chapter. And then the following week he has like basically a Q&A to discuss anything that people would have questions about from the language. I mean, from the lesson. I mean,
That's really good. I remember when I started learning Korean, I was using the integrated Korean books. And I actually found a YouTube channel that would kind of teach exactly what was in the chapter, and it really helped because I was just listening to the pronunciation. And I guess, I don't know, it was a different way of learning than just like, here's my book.
Yeah,
and I will read it.
yeah.
So
No.
it was nice. That's I should check that out.
Yeah, check that out. And Japanese from Zero has the books, and then he has, because there's like 5 of those now, and I think he has YouTube videos for every single chapter of those books up through maybe halfway through like the book he just released, like I don't know, maybe last year or so. Like it's all over. So, and I plan on doing that with when I go to Korean. I plan on reading, because I do have Billy's book, and I'm gonna go through his. As a matter of fact, I learned Hangul through Billy. Like I watched his video, and I was like, feel like he was such a good teacher. But I'm gonna go through his like, because by the time I get there, his 100 episode beginner series will probably be finished. So I'll probably go through that.
Probably.
Let me see.
I've never gotten a copy of Billy's book. I have friends that have copies and are actually moderators for his lives, but I've never had the opportunity to actually look through his book.
Yeah, I like the way I told him when I did the live stream with him, I was like, I wish there was a U for Japanese, like, because I really dig the way that he teaches.
Yeah.
Let me see here. I'm late. Blah, blah, blah. What drew Natalia to Korean? Yeah, we did discuss that. Just in short, she took a study abroad type of situation. Are you an app lover, hater, or indifferent? What ones have you tried? And have you used Link? Everybody asks about Link because I'm such a big fan of it.
Okay, so I wouldn't say I'm a hater, but when I use an app for too long, my wrists start to hurt because my job is online, and then I also do YouTube, so I just can't be on my phone like that. But the apps that I use Memrise every day, and the Naver Dictionary app.
Do you use your? Do you have your own Memrise course that you've created, or is it pre-made decks?
So I used to do pre-made ones or ones made by their users, but now as I'm starting to use books that are less popular or less mainstream, I'm creating my own decks.
Okay.
And I like it because it just gives me more control of the words and definitions.
No, I understand. Do you one thing, my biggest criticism of Memrise is that you can't create a deck on the freaking mobile app. Or at least on iPhone you can't. Like, it's so frustrating.
I wish they would at least give us the opportunity to edit an existing word. Yeah. Because sometimes I'll find just like I misspelled something or I want to add an additional definition.
Yeah.
For the Korean word, and I can't do that. I have to go into the desktop. Or even the ability to just ignore a word. That would be great. Yeah. I'd love that.
Yeah, man. Like, and that's, to me, one thing that I, like, the reason that I stopped using Memrise, which I made a video about that as well, but, like, I don't even remember if I touched on this, but that is one of my big complaints, and that's why I've eventually slowly gravitated towards Anki, because I can do all of that on my phone, because you're not going to be at your computer at all times when you hear a word, right? There's so many times when I'll be watching some dude play Animal Crossing in Japanese, and I hear a word and I look it up because I've heard it and I'm like, that sounds okay, and I'll look it up and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And if I want to, I can add that immediately into an Anki deck and go.
Yeah. See, for me, I tried to get into Anki, I think, after I came back from Korea. Because I had read the Fluent Forever book and it talks about it, but I didn't understand the interface, and at that time I was already using Memrise, so the switching cost was so high to me.
Yeah.
And I just never made the switch, and I don't think I ever will.
Nah, I understand. I will never pretend that I'm an Anki, like, have always been an Anki guy. If Matt vs. Japan he took an hour and a half or 2 hours out of his day one time to, I screen shared my computer with him, and he got on and he set everything up. And if not for that, because I'm not wow. technically stupid, like I'm not technologically stupid, but like it's over my head for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand why it's that hard to set up.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because they have add-ons that like remove because like on Anki you have like fail, or you have like okay, good, and like great. So it's like different day amounts, and like they have it set up. They have programs that him and like his partner Yoga have made where it's like they take those buttons out and it's based on it's pretty crazy. But
I wish there was something like that on Memrise where I could say I kind of remember it, but I kind of don't at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I guess when I see a word and I'm pretty sure I know what it means, but I don't for sure know what it means, I click the wrong wrong word on purpose, just so it shows it to me again later, because I know I'm not going to remember it when I try to write it down or use it myself.
Yep. No, 100%. I've done that. I've done that as well. Like I've been like, well, I know it's this, but I don't know.
They had
why.
asked about Link.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried to use Link back in 2016 when I was first learning Korean, because I was following Steve Kaufman, and obviously I'm going to go check out his stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't fully get into it at the time, and I think maybe my level just wasn't... I think my learning style was just not suited for that at the time, but I do want to try it out, or I will be trying it out soon, because I know that there's a lot of Korean content on there. So I'm trying to get into more native content. I think that would be a good way to do it. But
yeah.
Personal experience... can't offer that. Sorry.
No, I know what you mean. Like I like it. I haven't used it as much for Japanese because like the way that because Korean use spaces, right?
Yes, it does.
In Japanese, there are no spaces, and sometimes where it separates the words isn't correct at all, and so it'll give you a different meaning. I think that once I get to a higher level and I can read, it'll be good just as a reader. And then if there's one or two words that pop up, it's fine. But in terms of like learning a whole sentence, sometimes like it can be a little weird with Japanese just because of the. And then with kanji, sometimes the furigana that it gives you, like the hiragana, so you know how to pronounce it. Like if you can't read the kanji, will just be entirely wrong. So because that kanji can be pronounced different ways, so.
Okay.
It can be a little. It can be a little wonky.
I don't know what the system looks like now, or what the interface looks like now, because that was back at the beginning of 2016. It's been a while. But I'm excited to go in and try and use it again as a reader. But
yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's right now. I literally use it for. I interviewed Nuke Marine that I had on here, who does a bunch in the Japanese community. He took Pimsleur and he took all the English out of it. So once you listen to it in English once, you then listen to it, and part of your immersion is just listening to the Japanese, and it's cutting a 30-minute lesson down to 8 minutes of just nothing but Japanese. And so I imported all those to Link as audio lessons, and I just listen to those. So I literally have it. That way I don't have to have it on my phone or anything. I just pop open Link and it's there. So if I'm somewhere, I can just pop on and listen to an 8-minute lesson, and it's pretty good. So
okay. I know I've taken my textbook CDs. So if you start learning with, I guess Korean university books, they're taught in Korean, right? Because they don't know if you're an English speaker or not when you go to study there.
Yeah.
And I will take the dialogues and just listen to them on my phone, and it'll just be on repeat, the dialogue, just as practice. I mean, those are the words I'm learning on Memrise, and I just practice hearing them, and they're on shuffle, and I don't know. I guess after I've worked through that listening exercise, I know what it's going to say, but it's nice to like hear it and be like, oh, that's the word I know. Oh, I learned that word today or something.
Well, I mean, hearing it over and over though is how it sticks, right? Like that's how.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I hear in Japanese now that it's not even I have to translate. It hits me, and then if I want to translate it, I know what it means. But if somebody would be like, "What does that mean?" I have to think because I'm like, I know what that means, but how do I verbalize that?
Exactly. I have that issue with Korean so often where I know exactly what it means, but I can't put it in a coherent sentence in English.
Yeah.
I have to use several words to explain what that word means and
Right.
like the nuance of that word.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Let me see here. Marissa says, "Would you advise someone to learn Japanese and Korean at the same time, or pick one and learn it to a decent level first?"
I would say pick one. Only because I don't know, I feel like it could be easy to get confused if you don't have experience with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean that's just based on my personal experience. I don't know what kind of learner you are, but for me I could not no. I
Yeah.
could not do that.
Yeah, I feel like learning Japanese and Korean at the same time would be like learning Italian and Spanish at the same time. Like they're
Yeah.
super similar. I mean, I know the words are obviously different, but especially grammatically and stuff like that, there's a lot of similarities.
But I know for me, I've never been able to master the whole learn several languages at the same time.
Mm,
I mean, even now when I study Japanese, it's like once every 2 weeks, and it's because I booked a lesson ahead of time.
right.
It's not like I'm not very good at like managing my time, or I guess it's because I want to go get my master's in Korea through a program that is taught in full Korean, and I'm not at that level
Mm-hmm.
yet, and I want to go and do that next August. So
Okay.
it's just there's so much I feel like I need to learn in a short amount of time that I just can't justify spending that time learning something else.
No, I understand that. One of the things that's hit me lately is like, because I've studied on this channel, I've studied like 100 languages, and that's what, I do say like, I'm going to, I want to learn Korean eventually and stuff like that. But, the further I get into Japanese, like that's my main focus. Like Japanese will be my best language. And I feel you probably feel the same way about Korean. Like Korean,
I do.
Korean will be your best. Even if you dabble in something else, Korean's what you're always going to come back to
Right.
and
I've
continue on.
Yeah, I had this conversation with a friend the other day. She has achieved fluency in Korean, and she's currently studying Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I don't know. Like I think I will only become fluent in Korean, so it'll be English and Korean, and everything else I will be happy if I reach lower intermediate, because I don't think I'll ever love another language the same way as I love Korean, simply because I met so many people while studying abroad and made so many friends, and just it became like not just a language. It was like, no, part of my life is in Korean now. Like if I moved to another country and had those same experiences, I think then that language would also become very important to me. But since I haven't, I only see myself becoming fluent in Korean.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And Korea, like, I couldn't imagine what your experience in Korea was. The only experience I have with Koreans is I had a friend that had a Japanese friend, and he was friends with two Korean girls. And we all were hanging out one night, and they asked what kind of car I drove, and I was like, oh, I drive a Kia. And they were like, this was like 10 years, I don't drive a Kia anymore, but like, they were like, oh my, that's a Korean car. Thank you so much. Oh my, that is so awesome. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I was like, no problem. Like,
I love
guess.
Korean people. They're so nice.
Yeah. They probably hate me now because I drive a Subaru, and that's like, I guess, enemy territory in terms of like not supporting, we're supporting Japan and not Korea, but yeah, man, I love them. I love, that's the only interaction that I can think of that I've had with Korean people. It was so fantastic. Like, they were so nice.
Yeah, I remember my second semester, I decided I wanted to start going to church. And I found the nearest like Catholic church, which was like in the town over, because I was not in a major metropolitan area. And I remember I went in there, it was the evening mass, and I sat in like the back pew because I didn't want anyone to notice me.
Right.
It was like, I already stick out, but like also they can't see me if I'm sitting behind them, right? Like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I sit in the back, on the side, there's no, like, everyone's in the front, and in the middle of mass, the priest says in Korean, does anybody know how to say peace be with you in English? And that was one of the few things I could understand at the time. And I was like, did he just? No, he certainly didn't just say the word English in here. No. And then he looks at me and he says, because we have a foreigner,
Oh
make
no.
sure to say peace be with you to her. And the whole congregation turned around and bowed to me. And I was like, what am I doing here? What just happened? And I couldn't, I was like, I was just trying to be like chill, trying to take mass.
Yeah.
Like, but it ended up being a very good experience. I ended up joining the youth group there and going and having dinner with them every Sundays after mass. So it was a very good experience. I'm glad he did that. But at the time, I was mortified.
Yeah.
So.
No, I feel like that would be, because I think, I mean, here, like, you see all these people and they're going out and they're speaking the, like you'll see like Xiaoma will go to New York City, to his Chinatown.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. But like, which, I mean, obviously there, whether, no matter what you feel about Xiaoma, he's obviously talented in Chinese, I know he lived in China, but when you're doing that here, like it's in a very controlled environment. You step outside and it's still America, it's still English, for whatever. But when you're over there, man, and you're the foreigner, you're the outsider, it's like it's a whole different ball game.
And I remember he asked me, and he doesn't speak English, but he broke out his English for me and asked me where I was from, so I had to not yell, because you don't yell in a church, but like speak loudly saying that I was from the United States. It was he did it to me again too when I went as a graduation trip, so two years later, and I went to mass because they feel like family now. And
yeah,
he did it to me again. But this time it was worse because he had me stand up while everyone was seated, and I couldn't fully understand his Korean, and I thought he was asking me to go up to the altar for something. It was such a mess, but
yeah,
I love them.
No, I can see that.
It's great.
I can see that.
Yeah.
One thing, I always recommend this to everybody when I talk about nice people. Like, just get online. You have a huge following, so if you made a video like this, it would probably explode. Tell somebody that you want to learn Vietnamese for like 2 weeks. Vietnamese are the absolute greatest, friendliest, nicest, want to help you out people on the planet. I say that every time I mention it, but like, when I first thought I'm going to learn Vietnamese, I don't even know how. I had like 30 friend requests from Vietnamese people. They were all sending me messages like, I want to help you out. And I think it's because Vietnam is kind of like the forgotten. I mean, obviously, like there's other areas of Asia that are even lesser, like Laos and Cambodia and stuff. But like Vietnam, I guess, feels like, hey, we're Asian too. It's not just Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. We have and they really want to help people learn their language. They're incredible. It's one of the most fascinating cultures I've ever found.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
They're just nice.
Oh, super, super friendly. Very, very cool people. One day, that's honestly one of my biggest passions is Vietnamese. My issue with it is it's so easy for me. I guess it's kind of a cheap way out because Japanese was my first love. But I am not struggling in any way, shape, or form to find resources to watch, read, listen. Like, Japanese media is you can't walk into a store and not find Japanese media, even if you try to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a lot easier to stick with. But let me see here. The Korean language has so much slang and colloquial phrases, new words constantly being made up. How'd you find this aspect of Korean?
New words constantly being made up? I guess I tend to learn like the slang through context when my friends send it to me. It's not something that I'm focusing on. Mm-hmm. I guess you could say. Like since I'm trying to get my master's over there, I'm just trying to learn everything in my books or anything that my lecturer or I guess professor will potentially say to me, which is probably not a slang word. Right. And it's not something that I can really use yet myself if I tried. So I don't involve myself in that too much.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Unless I'm trying to insult my friend. I have no use for that word.
Right. Do you pick up, like, for example, if somebody tells you like a bad word or something like that, do you find that it's harder to forget? Like, it's just so easy to remember?
I actually don't know that many bad words in Korean. I think I know like 2.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's just not something that I don't ever say those words, and I've never heard anyone actually say those words.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not.
No, it makes sense.
I should probably learn them. That way, if someone says something to me, I know what's going on. But
yeah, you're like, wait a minute now. I am not that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any advice getting through the intermediate plateau?
Okay, so I have this theory. We're about to like put on our tin hats.
Yeah.
I don't think it's actually a plateau. To me, I think it's short. It's like an incline, and I think it's just so much content that you have to like get familiar with, and so much, I guess, words you need to learn that it feels like it's a plateau because there's such a big gap between intermediate and advanced. But it's not really plateau. It's just a really long staircase that you're trying to get up.
Yeah.
That's my theory, and I say that because technically, I think my second semester in Korea, I considered myself intermediate. Like I was being able to use like the intermediate structures and the words that they were teaching me in these intermediate courses, right? So I considered myself intermediate. And even now, I still consider myself intermediate, and that's like 3 years later. But when I look at the diary entries that I wrote in Korean at that time, they're so bad. Like there are things where I look and I'm like, I should have just written that sentence in English because I have no idea what I'm trying to say now. I want to know what I was saying.
Right.
This was important to me.
Right.
I have no idea. And I was actually looking at one of my Korean business books. It's for foreigners that want to take business administration courses in Korea.
Okay.
And I was looking at it, and the last time I studied with it was August of last year. And I was looking at the things that I defined, and I was like, I know all these words now. Like, why did I underline that? It's like, there's so much progress that I can see just between the year, like each year, that I don't really see it as a plateau. It's just more of, there's not like that big jump anymore.
Yeah.
So.
No, I can agree with that, because if you start a language and you learn 100 words, right? Normally it's the 100 most common. I, he, she,
Right.
Sleep, eat, drink, that stuff, right? And you hear that stuff pretty regularly. So it feels like you know a lot more than you do. Well, once you've learned 8,000 words and you're trying to get to 10,000 words, those 2,000 words you may hear once every 3 or 4 weeks.
Exactly. You just don't hear them as often.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're so important. So I guess my advice would be to just keep going. Keep some kind of diary or video log, even if you don't share it anywhere, where you just kind of keep track of your progress and look back on it. Because to me, I thought of it as a plateau until I started noticing just how much progress I'd actually made, and then I realized it was not a plateau at all.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. It's probably not the answer you wanted, but
No,
that's the answer I will give.
Yeah, no, I think it's sound advice. What is your method for creating cards on Memrise?
Oh, nothing special. I usually put the definition that's in my textbook as well as additional definitions if needed. So I just add them all in there.
Okay.
I was just going to say that there are Korean words that will have 3 different definitions that are like not different as in like a slight variation of an English word. It's like completely different. So I'll just go ahead and put them all in there.
Yeah. Do you sort them out by, like, for example, do you keep them in courses in terms of like, this is a food, this is a, I don't know, piece of a car, like, you know what, like, do you categorize them or do you keep them in chapters by what you're studying?
I keep them in chapters of what I'm studying because, so with my italki teacher, we're using the Seoul National book, and I want to focus on the words that are in the chapter that we're about to go over. I don't want to learn words from chapter 7 or chapter 8 or even chapter 1 if I haven't finished chapter 1 vocabulary, because I want to focus on getting the most out of my lesson with her. So I choose to do it by chapter so I can focus on those. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense too. And do you, speaking of the words, because Japanese has so much of that as well, where a word will mean like slow, and then it'll also mean late, and then it'll also mean like pine tree or so. You know what I mean? Like, right. So yeah. Like you said that you do all 3. So do you try to get sample sentences for all 3? That way you're kind of like 3 birds, three birds in one stone, I guess. We'll make that work. Like, you know them all, or.
So I don't put sentences into Memrise. Like the longest thing that ends up in a Memrise course that I've personally created is an idiom.
Okay.
So I don't put sentences. But when I am learning, I will go and look at the Naver Dictionary and I'll read like the VLive subtitles, because those are like the most natural sentences that I can find. Yeah. And I'll read through those, and I might write them down in my ugly notebook, which my subscribers know basically just means an unorganized, unformatted book where I care more about learning instead of like the aesthetics of my notebook. Right. So I might write some down in there, and I might reference them later, but yeah, I don't really.
Okay. That makes sense. I still haven't started the whole sentence mining, but it's also taken me 4 months to complete remember the kanji, and a lot of people do that in like a month or two. So, but there are a couple more questions that I'm going to get to those, but I want to break in with so like if somebody right now came to you and was like, I'm going to start Korean,
Okay.
where would you point them to? What would be the resources? Like, what would be like knowing all that you know now, right? Like, what would you recommend? Like, what would be like integrated Korean, Korean demystified? Talk to me in Korean. Like, what, like, just where would you send somebody to get started?
I think I would ask them what their goals are. One, what their
Mm,
goals are and what kind of learner they are. And I would take into account their age.
mm,
Because I think, okay, so I like using the EFA books right now, but if I'm talking to someone who just wants to casually learn Korean, maybe like once a week for an hour, I'm not going to tell them to get an EFA textbook because those chapters have 75 plus words per chapter.
mm.
It's gonna take them forever to get through that one chapter. Then they're gonna feel demotivated and they're gonna stop trying because they
Right,
think that they're just either not smart enough or it's not for them or something.
right.
So if it's someone who's trying to learn something casually, I would say go with Talk to Me in Korean or go look at Billy's channel because it's easy. They make it very bite-sized, it's well
Mm,
packaged so that you feel like you're getting somewhere
yeah,
because of the way they have structured their curriculum. But with Iwa or other Korean university textbooks, they are trying to throw so much at you because it's meant for their intense Korean courses
hmm,
that they have in Korea where you're in class for 8 hours, 5 days a week,
hmm,
right? So
yeah,
it's different. I mean, if you're trying to go and take university classes in Korea, I'd say yes, start with these really difficult textbooks that are going to challenge you because you're going to get a lot farther if you're willing to put in the time.
yeah.
But again, like I started with the integrated Korean books because I felt they were more challenging than Talk to Me in Korean stuff.
Hmm,
And their explanations were slightly longer. But I started with that because I had this goal of I really, really want to be in the intermediate courses in 2 months, and I can't do it if I'm have little bite-sized lessons,
yeah,
where they're kind of spoon feeding you, and it's not a bad thing. They're catering to people that are trying to casually learn Korean because they
right,
love K-pop or K-dramas, which is great. But
yeah,
for me, I was like, no, I gotta get somewhere fast.
yeah,
So it would really depend on their age and what their goals are.
yeah.
But um,
How long do you say you had mentioned like out because like, again it's how much you put in is what you're gonna get out. Like
right.
how much even like how much now do you spend like per day in Korean?
Mm, I would say I listen to Korean media in terms of like passive, like listening several hours a day for sure because I love K-pop.
Hmm.
I'm not even ashamed. I
No.
love K-pop, so it's like playing in the background. Um, but in terms of active study, on average, maybe an hour and a half a day. And it's not because I'm like, wow, super dedicated or something. It's more like I just really enjoy it and I have
Hmm.
no other hobbies. And like even
Yeah.
my hobby, which is YouTube, is about Korean. So I
Yeah.
can't make a video about the textbook review if I haven't worked through the textbook. So
Right.
I have that's yeah, I would say maybe an hour and a half, but on the weekends it's definitely more because I do have like study calls with my friends and I host those study sessions through Instagram
Hmm.
where that like just one session is 2.5 hours. So
Yeah.
it really varies. It
Yeah.
really varies.
You should do. I want everybody to do it, which I'm gonna make my end video Monday because Monday will be like after. But do the thing that I'm doing this week, which is where you dedicate, like, try to study full time, like study 40. And like the thing is, set your goal right because like from the beginning, I said there's no way that I can actively study 40 hours in a week with having a job and having a kid. But my goal was 40 hours total study, and half of it had to come from active study. At least 20 hours had to come from active study because that's still going to be more than I usually do, and then the additional listening time. I don't know. It's something. It's opened my eyes a lot, and I'll go ahead and tell like I'll mention this like so you guys on the stream, if anybody who watches my channel normally, this is like a sneak peek, but I had already hit my goal yesterday. Like
Ooh.
I finished. I'm already over 40 hours, and I'm already over 20 hours of active study, and I still have today and tomorrow.
I watched your videos actually before we went live about that, and I was like, ah. Because I
Yeah.
remember in May I had thought like, oh, that would be a really cool video. I could just take a week off from work and really like see how far I'm able to progress. But at the
Mm.
same time, I was like, do I want to spend my vacations doing that?
Yeah. It's
So,
the biggest eye opener for me is how much time I waste. Like that's what's because like I've already put that in, and I'm thinking like which I was talking to Mark, the guy that he had talked about doing this on my channel back in May-ish, April or May. And I was talking to him about it, and I said, it's a great thing. I love that you brought this up, and I love that, like, you know, Lamont from Days of French and Swedish did it and all that stuff, and, like, it's such a good concept, but some people could do this all the time, but there's no way I could do this every week. Like, it's so intense and just focus, like, all the time. Like, every time when I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna yawn, and then I'm like, should I pop open Facebook and read this message? Nope, I should do another 3 Anki flashcards just to do, like, it's super intense. But it's been a really good experience, though.
Yeah, for sure. Oof. I'm trying to imagine if I were to do that. I think I would, like, crash at the end. Like, I would do that, and then the next week I would not study at all, which, like, defeats the purpose.
Right.
I could have just done those, like, 40 hours as 20 and 20 or something.
Yeah.
But
it's a I don't know. It's a cool concept. I'm anxious to see. I mean, like, obviously, like, I think a lot of times people click on those videos hoping it's going to be like, I became fluent in a week, and that's obviously not the case. But, like, there's so much that has happened in my brain over the past week. But what do you think of Hanja, since you've studied Chinese in the past and that you're also studying Japanese?
I love it. So personally, like, having lived in Korea, I can tell you you're not going to see Hanja in very many places. I think the place I would see it the most often was on a menu where it was like a family style, and it would have like the word for small, medium, and large in terms of like servings. That was like the only place I would see it. So unless you're going to do something super academic, you're not going to need it in terms of like everyday Korean. But if you already have experience with like Chinese characters, you're going to learn so many more words so much faster than someone that has no experience with the Chinese characters. I mean, okay, so if you've ever learned with Talk to Me in Korean, they actually have some lessons where it's fully dedicated to this is a Hanja, and it's pronounced this way, and it's related to culture. And then they'll give you a list of words that use that Hanja as a base to mean like literature, or literally the word culture, or the word letter, or just a list of words. And I remember reading that and thinking, how do people not know this? I picked that up already. But then I'm like, okay, Natalia, you also studied Chinese for 4 years, so you need to calm down.
Right, right.
But yeah, it really does help. It helps a lot.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. I'm anxious to see, like, if Chinese is what I go into next, how much kanji is going to help me. But I know there's...
I think it'll help you.
I'm hoping so. I don't know. But like I said, Japanese... I'm on Japanese for a long time, so we'll see.
I think... I was just gonna say, I think the only difference, or the part that would get you, is since the pronunciation is different.
Yeah.
You're gonna want to say it in Japanese.
Yeah. And then what if I do this weird thing where I speak Chinese in a Japanese accent?
Yeah. When I speak Japanese, I sound Korean. I sound like a Korean person that's learning Japanese. Like, I just can't
switch them.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd have an English accent, but no.
Yeah. Do you find that because, like, I've heard a lot of people talk about pronunciation, because, like, there are a lot of things in Japanese that can be a little hard to, and I think this is something that I take for granted as someone who studied Japanese for so long. I was talking to, as a matter of fact, it's a friend of mine that I know in person. He started studying Japanese, and I'll message him about stuff, which is an eye-opener, like how far I've actually come in the language, but it's also like, because he's like, oh, I have trouble, like, this is pronounced weird, and why isn't the U pronounced here, and why isn't the I pronounced here, and I'm like... Oh yeah, I guess that could be difficult. Like, so like, but do you think? Because to me, Japanese pronunciation is like the easiest on the planet. Like, I love, like, obviously I can't, like, I know like pitch and stuff like that. But in terms of like just reading it, generally the sound is how it sounds, regardless. Now, obviously, if it's like shita, it's shita, but it's shita, or you know, you pronounce des, not desu. Like, but like, do you think that the pronunciation in Japanese is like way easier? Because Korean pronunciation seems brutal to me.
See, I never had an issue with Korean pronunciation. Like, I didn't even study pronunciation rules for Korean. I came in with an advantage. I had been listening to K-pop at that point for like 5 or 6 years, so I already had an idea of what it sounded like. Okay. So I'm a little biased with the Korean pronunciation, but even for Japanese, it wasn't. I didn't think the pronunciation was hard. It was more like, okay, when I see this combination of letters, it's supposed to be this other sound. Oh, because where there has like a small like yo or something, or tsu, I I'd been hearing Japanese for so long, but I'd never really tried to read it, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, until I started trying to learn it. And so when I would see little things like that, I was like, what is that supposed to be? I don't understand. And then when someone would tell me, I'd be like, oh, so
Yeah.
that's how you make that sound.
Yeah. And it is kind of confusing because they are small, but it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. Because the small two means it's a
Yeah.
double consonant, but then the small yo,
Yeah.
it turns like she yo into sho. So I could see that being
Hmm.
confusing.
Yeah, I was so used to hearing it that like it just didn't click to me when I saw it written down. I thought it was going to be something completely different.
Yeah,
So,
I can understand that. I remember first starting Japanese, and when I first got into trying to read some of it, I can remember being like for example, the word like I'll just use yappari for example, which is like it's like ya and then small two and then pa because it's yappari. And I remember like if I would reading that, I'd be like, what is yatsupari? Like because I like I didn't
that sounds funny.
it
Yeah.
just wouldn't like all right whatever. So yeah, I could see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever try to eavesdrop on Koreans talking amongst themselves in case they're talking crap?
All the time. I'm just eavesdropping all the time. I'm not even ashamed to say that. I'm eavesdropping all the time. But it's not really a point. It's not because I'm trying to see, like, oh, what are they saying? It's more like, can I understand native Korean? Because when someone is talking to you, or at least like when they're talking to me in Korean, they kind of like lower their Korean to my level, which is fine. But I want to test where my Korean is if I was, in a situation where it's a ton of Korean people at a table and they pretend that I am not a foreigner. I want like, am I close? Can I even understand what they're saying? So it's more of
Yeah.
how much can I understand? Not really. What are they talking about?
Yeah.
But,
Do they do the thing like we do in English where like for example, if you go to a restaurant and the waiter is having trouble understanding you and you'll be like, I would like the because like if it's me, I'd be like, let me get the like it's you combine so many words into like a two syllable
Yeah.
like let me get like and it's like what is that? But like do they do the thing where they like slow talk you?
no.
No?
I've never had, like, when I was in Korea, no, I never had that issue.
Okay. All right.
They might, like, point and stuff. Like, if there was, I remember there was one time, I asked how much something was, and instead of telling me, the lady just brought out her calculator and typed in the numbers and showed it to me. I was like, okay, you could have just told me. I'm good enough to understand numbers.
Yeah.
Like, but also, I lived in a place where it had a lot of international students that didn't speak Korean. So she was just like, I don't feel like it today. Let's not have that whole what conversation.
Yeah.
So let's just
She was in a
show you
hurry. She was like,
calculator.
we're getting this done.
Yeah,
looking
she's
at the
like,
numbers.
buy my pencil.
Yeah. That's
But-
that's funny. Let me see here. Very thankful, three birds, one stone. That's so true. Plateau isn't really plateau. I learned the importance of a tracker app for time spent studying for one of your from one of your videos, Natalia.
Oh, I love A Tracker.
At an intermediate, is that the so I downloaded one a long time ago and I was trying to use it and then I stopped. A Tracker might have been it. But I was really I was so stupid. I was like so paranoid about missing seconds that I was like, this app I can only do it in minute increments. Like, and I thought, and I was like, and then now I don't even care. Like, if I watch a YouTube video and it's 13 and a half minutes, I'll put 13 and then just the next video I watch, I'll do it the minute up or something like that. Like if I'm really, really calculating.
Gotcha. I started using A Tracker because I think I had seen one of like Steve Kaufman's videos where he talked about using it and just keeping track of study time. And I basically started using it because I felt like I was putting in so much time into learning Korean and I didn't understand why I wasn't seeing the results that I felt like my time put in, I guess, deserved. And then when I started tracking, I was like, I only studied an hour. Like,
Yeah.
Natalia, because of all the interruptions that I had, like from going to have dinner with my family or going to do XYZ chore or
Yeah.
something. At the end of the day, it had only been an hour and it helped me basically be like, okay, Natalia, we're not going to stop and take a break because it's only been 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You can do this.
Yeah.
So,
That's honestly, in my opinion, one of the most important things about tracking is, and you don't have to do it all the time. I don't track all the time. Usually once every other week or maybe every 2 weeks, I'll track just to make sure I'm on point with where I'm at and where I need to be. Because you do think that you do a lot more than you actually do.
yes.
You'll be like, man, I watched like 5 hours of TV today. And then you're like, oh, nope, that was 2 20-minute episodes. Well, sorry. Like-
Yeah. Yeah. Overcompensate. So it just made me realize, like, okay, Natalia, let's focus a little longer because you haven't reached that goal that you would like to, spend time
Yeah.
completing XYZ.
Oh, for sure. Let me see. Bravo on getting those hours. Definitely gotta up my active time. I'm good with passive and studying, but that active immersion needs to get bumped up. For sure. So this was a good and Lindy's in here. Hey Lindy, let me make sure there's nothing else here. Language party all of a sudden. Okay, and I'll get to those questions in just a second. So I have people like, when did you start, or let me see. Sorry, again, I'm really bad with articulating my thoughts here.
You're good.
When you started like immersing in content, watching Korean content or listening to your K-pop and stuff like that, I've had a lot of people that have been like, how, like, it's so demotivating to me. To me, it's incredibly motivating because I want to understand it, so it makes me work harder. Did you have any problems with that, like watching stuff and just being like, I just don't get it? Or was it always a thing where you were like, I want to understand this, so I'm motivated to keep doing it?
It really depends. Okay, so if it's something where it's content that was made for native speakers, I'm not demotivated by the fact that I don't understand it, because I know I have so much more to learn.
Yeah.
But if it was something that was made for intermediate speakers and I don't understand, then I feel demotivated because I'm wondering why I don't understand something that is supposed to be at my level.
Gotcha.
So it depends on what it is.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you recommend Korean grammar in use? Do you recommend Korean grammar in use for beginner?
I've never used the beginner version. I only have the intermediate. So what I say is going to be based on my experience with the intermediate one. But to me, it's more of a reference book than a textbook that you are supposed to work through. So, Jonathan, I assume you haven't seen it, but it's basically a book that has a ton of similar grammar structures put in one unit, and it'll go over each of them so you can kind of learn, okay, this is 5 ways to say I think, and this is how they're different. So it's very useful, but at the same time, I don't think you're supposed to be, okay, 1 chapter a day or something like that. So I have my main textbook, which is the Ihwa one, and I work through that. And when I don't understand the explanation in there for grammar structure, I'll pull out that resource and I'll read their explanation on it. And it'll just like give me additional sentences and sometimes even additional information on you're not supposed to use it in this context or that context. So I use it more as a supplement than anything else.
Oh crap!
But
I think let me refresh this. I think my internet's been so crappy lately. Like I have I'll leave the YouTube video up in the background and it looks like it froze. So hang on just a second. No, okay, no, it looks like it's still going. It's just super choppy. My internet's so bad. Like, and I don't know if it's just from where everybody's home because of the quarantine, but it's been I also have Google Maps up. That's probably slowing something down there. Yeah, it looks like it's still. I'm gonna just ask in chat. Okay. Not sure what's up with the video, but can you all still hear? Okay. Let me go. I'll see if anybody answered because, like, the video. Okay, Lindy said that she can hear but can't see. All right, I'm not sure what's up.
Oh, no.
My internet's trash. It's like super choppy, so.
Okay.
All right, so hopefully you guys. Hopefully. Okay, it looks like, I don't know. It seems like it might be back. Maybe I just needed to take a break for a second. Okay, so. Yes, that sounds like an awesome book. To be able to have multiple structures in the same spot to be able to, because there are a lot of things that are used in so many different ways.
It's nice.
Best reading Korean book for beginner?
So I didn't have a lot of reading resources when I started out. Since then, Talk to Me in Korean has come out with a reading for beginners book. And so has Billy. He just came out with one, I think, this year. So I would check those out, but I haven't personally used them because there just wasn't the resource at the time when I started. So I would check those out. Those are both very good places to learn Korean.
Okay. Cool. Let me see here. Did you read any webtoons?
No.
No?
No, I'm not a webtoon person. No.
Okay.
Sorry, people.
No, it's all good. That's everybody still gets like super offended that I don't do anime. Like I've been studying off and on Japanese for 10 years and I just found an anime that I think is okay. It's just never been my thing.
Yeah.
So also just because it's a stream, I am wearing a wrestling beanie. This is a wrestling company, but
Okay.
just to constantly mention wrestling as much as humanly possible. For anybody who doesn't know, I got into Japanese because of pro wrestling. So just to get that out there. Okay, yeah, this is where the stream is lagging. Got the message a whole minute later. How long did it take you to make your own sentences in Korean? Okay, yeah, so we can branch that into just, when did you start speaking? When did you start the quote-unquote output process?
So I started the output process rather early. I want to say after a month of studying Korean, like self-studying, because I mean, at the time I was learning Korean because I wanted to communicate with my future like Korean classmates and my roommate. Like my roommate was going to be Korean. So I
Right.
wanted to be able to not just understand but also like at least make baby sentences. So I used Hello Talk.
Okay.
People have mixed feelings about Hello Talk, but I used Hello Talk and I was just sending text messages and it really helped me because they would correct the things that I thought I knew but ends up did not know.
Right.
So I remember being so amazed because at the end of those 2 months right before I went to Korea, I was like, wow, I can, at least over text, I can actually have a conversation and say why I'm going to Korea and what I enjoy doing. Like 2 months ago, I was upset because I had to do conjugation.
Right, right.
But yeah, I would say for texting, like in terms of making those types of sentences, a month is when I started doing it. And then for speaking, I didn't really speak. Even when I was in Korea, I didn't speak unless I really had to because it ended up that all my Korean classmates and roommates could speak English very, very well. So it kind of felt ineffective or inefficient for me to be speaking in Korean to people that spoke such high levels of English when my Korean was like here. So I really only spoke when I was out and about by myself. I would say I didn't truly start like speaking until maybe 3 years in. And it wasn't necessarily because, wow, I have reached like this level in my grammar and I know this many vocabulary words. It was more like, okay, Natalia, you need to start speaking because this like gap between your abilities is it's kind of embarrassing at this point.
Gotcha.
So I started just focusing on like, it was a mindset switch of like, I'm going to go out and speak and I'm going to be slow and I'm going to make mistakes. But you know what? That's how we learn. So I just made that switch and my speaking has gotten a lot better. It's still not great, but it's leaps and bounds from where it was like a year ago or a year and a half ago.
Have people stopped doing the, oh, that's so cute, you're learning Korean? Have they stopped? Because I feel like that's always a thing. When you speak to someone in their language, they're like, oh, that's so sweet.
I don't think I ever had that unless it was like an auntie, I guess. Because like an ajumma or an imo at a restaurant and they just never heard a foreigner speak Korean. So even if it was bad, they'd be like, oh, 너무 잘했어. And they'd like give you free food.
That sounds amazing.
It was great. Yeah. But it wasn't necessarily, I don't think it was because I was like bad. I think it was just like they'd never seen a foreigner speak Korean. Because again, I wasn't in Seoul. So I was like in this, like not necessarily the countryside, but it was like our subway came every 45 minutes. So it was nowhere near like an actual like city. So they're like, whoa. And then of course, you know, my pronunciation probably wasn't like the best. So
yeah, I'm telling you, man, Korean pronunciation with like the eh, the like there's so many sounds that are the exact same to me. Like, and I guess there's just honestly, a slight difference.
There are some where they are the same. They don't tell you in the textbook that they are the same, but if you ask someone, they'll say they're the same. They'll be like, oh, 옛날에. It means like a long, long time ago they were different, but we got lazy and now they are the same.
Nice.
So,
it's good to see that other cultures get lazy and it's not just the United States. So
yeah, you can ask them. They'll tell you they're the same.
That's amazing. I've got a couple more questions. I'll let you go. We're an hour and 10 minutes. I don't want to keep you like all day here, but for one, I've got two more questions in particular, and then we'll answer a couple more, whatever comes through here, and then we can wrap up here. But I always ask everybody this, especially people who are more so advanced in a language, and that is obviously the Duolingo / like that kind of thing. Like, did you ever even try Duolingo Korean, and what were your thoughts?
I did not. So I think at the time, I don't think they had Korean on Duolingo when I started learning Korean.
Yeah, I think it
and
just
also
launched.
I'm just not an app person.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think it just
I just
launched within the last 2 or 3 years,
I
maybe
think
2 years.
so.
But I didn't know if you'd ever like even went just to
Yeah.
look. It's so like Duolingo for Asian courses, like anything that doesn't have a Latin-based alphabet, it's just
Mhm.
it's like they don't know how to teach it. Like, and it's not. I mean, it's a course made, and I know the people who are trying their best. Like, I'm not knocking that, but
Yeah.
like you can't teach you can't teach signs through English letters because that might not be how you hear
Um,
those letters. Like
yeah,
it's
I know there's a Korean letter. It's lir. It's the one that kind of looks like a two, I
mm,
guess. And sometimes it sounds like an R and sometimes it's an L. And I think there's a similar sound in Japanese, right? Where it like
le,
switches.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, so it switches based on if it's followed by a consonant or if there's like a patjib or like a final consonant at the end of like the word preceding it. Like it really changes, so you can't teach it as like an R or just an L. It has to be in context
yeah,
for you to know how to say it.
yeah. That makes I think I can understand that, and again that's part of the issue with the way that it's taught because it'll literally be like and what's frustrating is it'll be like it'll have the English letters and then sometimes again like for example the I can't it's like it's pronounced like but the way that they do the English like the English letters is EO and it's like okay I could see that as being but then what about this other that you have is like it's not even like EU it'll be like some
Yeah.
other letter like it's just so confusing.
Yeah. I honestly I don't really remember how I learned Hangul because at the time I just remember my friend was saying, "Hey, let's go hang out at the bookstore." And I was like, "Okay." And she said, "Let's learn some Korean." And I was like, "Okay." Because at the time I was still studying to go to China. So I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever makes you happy." So we printed out just a chart of like the Hangul.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just sitting there and like learning it. Like people ask me, "How did you learn Hangul?" Because they expect me to say, "Oh, I use this app," or I learned 5 letters a day or something. I was like, no, I sat down and I memorized it. Like, that's it. Like, I just
Yeah.
old fashioned way.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and I think
yeah.
with Hangul is so freaking intuitive, man. You can learn it in very like if it took
Yeah.
you more than a day to learn Hangul, like it's not that you're doing something wrong, but you just didn't utilize like you can learn it quickly, I think.
Yeah, I think I hate saying this on my channel because I don't want to discourage people, but I think it only took me an hour.
Yeah. That
So,
sounds like
and I'm not saying I knew every letter like perfectly, but I knew them enough to where the point where I was seeing my K-pop band, right? They were releasing some new song and it had the title in Korean and I could read it,
mm-hmm.
or at least I was like, I'm pretty sure that sound is this one, and then I'd go check and I'm like, yeah, it is. Um, I guess at the time I wasn't very pressured to learn it. It was just like, because at the
Mm-hmm.
time I wasn't going to go to Korea or anything. I was just like, yeah, my friend wants to learn the letters, so I guess we're learning the letters today.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And there you go. That was the
That
whole
was the beginning.
yeah, that was the beginning of everything.
Yeah.
You see.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a couple more of these, and then I'm gonna finish off with the last question that I have, and then
Okay.
we wrap it up here. So let me make sure this isn't a part of a second question here. Okay. This is Korean. Things that you don't like about mastering conversational Korean for beginners book. Did I read that?
Oh. The I see what you mean. There's a Tuttle book. This one.
Okay.
So okay. So I used this when I first started learning Korean. Honestly, okay. I'm gonna hold on. I kind of forgot because that was so long ago. But I would say it's not a bad thing. It's just they're I think they're all different. So this one I know it's called Mastering Conversation for Korean Beginners, but it's not actually about conversation. It's more of an introduction to the language. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're someone who is maybe heard K-pop or maybe know nothing about Korean and you're like, I kind of want to learn Korean. What's this whole Korean about? Because
Mm-hmm.
you don't know anything about the structure, you don't know verbs and adjectives are at the end, you don't know that there are particles. It will tell you that in a way that's kind of it's not overwhelming, and the way it's written is very fun. It's like the author is your friend and they're actually talking to you during the book. So
Okay.
it's not like the Korean language is like this. It's like, so you should notice that the Korean language is like this. And I know it's hard, but it'll become easier as you go through it or something.
Mm.
So I really like this book, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into when you get it. Don't get it like wanting this to be your only Korean resource, because it's not that type of resource.
Gotcha.
So I guess you could say that would be my thing I didn't like, but it's not really a thing I don't. It's not that I don't like it. It's just you need to know what you're getting yourself into.
I think that makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
How should an absolute Korean beginner take notes? Any tips? That's a good question.
Okay, so I didn't really take notes when I started, and even now I don't, I guess, advocate for taking notes. If you're gonna take notes, definitely do it in your textbook, or if you're gonna be learning with Talk to Me Korean, print them out if you're the kind of person that prints them out and just write them on there. Because I feel like as a beginner, you're not really taking notes, and this is a personal opinion, but you're not really taking notes. You're kind of just copying down what you're being told.
Right.
You're not really, because you're not focusing on nuances yet. You're just focusing on, okay, this grammar structure is like ing in English. It means you're doing something.
Right.
So, I guess if you're going to take notes, make sure you're doing them in a way where it's not distracting you from actually learning. Like, don't focus on like copying everything down. If you need to write translations of the sentences, do so. You're a beginner. I expect you to have to translate things. But I guess don't just copy your notes into a spiral. It's not an efficient way to be studying. So
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Somebody said, let's see. By the way, the Korean grammar in use sounds like the Dictionary of Beginner Japanese Grammar. There's also an intermediate and advanced. Great supplement for Japanese learners if anyone's interested.
That's cool.
K-pop Curiosity says, how can I start learning Japanese from scratch? How did you start learning Japanese from scratch?
Okay, if we talk about now, not like high school when I like tried and failed. Just the Genki book. Like, I do really well with something that is structured and tells me what to learn, because I'm not very good at like, I'm going to learn this grammar structure and that grammar structure. Like, I can't. I've tried that before with German and it did not go very well. So I thrive on structure. So I would just say, if you learn like I do, get a textbook and just kind of like work your way through it, because it takes all that pressure of figuring out what you're going to study away. You just like kind of follow it. And I think Genki is good if you're a student, which I assume you're a student based on your handle. Wait, is that the same person? Yeah. I assume you're a student based on your handle. I don't actually know, but it's centered on student life, so it's going to be things that are relatively relevant to you.
That makes sense. I was trying to think of like, I remember when I first started Japanese, I went to Google, because like I had decided, I was like, I'm going to learn Japanese. And I went to Google and I was like, learn Japanese. And of course, this was in 2009, and it was just like Rosetta Stone was like the thing, right? And so I got Rosetta Stone for Japanese, and I remember doing like the first like module, and I just thought I was so awesome. And then that's when the realization that learning a language is not just as easy as clicking on an app and trying to use it, or clicking on a program. And then I kind of fell out of it for a long time. But that was my first introduction. I was like, Rosetta Stone.
I actually started learning Mandarin with Rosetta Stone, because Mandarin was the first language that I felt that I was gonna struggle with, because I think I started learning Spanish beforehand, but my parents speak Spanish, so if I didn't understand, they could check my work, but my parents don't speak Mandarin, right? So I started like with Rosetta Stone, because I wanted to come in or go into my classes a little bit ahead. So it did help me, but I don't think it's like your sole resource for something.
But I agree. I can agree with that.
So
how do you handle honorifics in Korean? I'm afraid of speaking Korean and accidentally offending someone. I apparently said thank you casually and was corrected to say it in the formal way.
Okay, so honorifics are still something that I'm working on. So I've been studying for 4.5 years. I've lived there, and I still will get confused. But I think it's like, I've been corrected before too, and honestly, they don't do it in like a you messed up way. It's more like, I don't want you to insult someone later when you're better, so let me just correct you now.
Right.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be discouraged by that. Not that you're saying you're discouraged, but I wouldn't be discouraged. I think it just comes with a lot of exposure, because every situation is different. For example, I have some friends where I was literally thinking about this today. We both speak Korean, but our relationship started English. So if I start speaking to them in Korean, should I be using like the polite form? It's not super formal, but it's polite. Like, should I be using that, or is that an insult? Because in Korean, it's also an insult if you're really close to someone and then you use that level. It's like you're putting
Right.
a wall between you and them. So should I be doing that, or like play it safe, but then potentially be rude because now I'm telling them that there's a wall, or do I
Yeah.
just start out super casual and then they potentially think like, oh, she doesn't respect me or something.
Right.
It's like a minefield because we didn't grow up in that situation. So
Yeah.
I would say just get
It's
lots of exposure and ask if you're confused. Just ask and say, or even ask like a friend and say, if I'm in this situation, what am I supposed to do? Because I don't
yeah.
know. So
Would it be considered impolite in Korean to be like, "Hey, how should I address you? Should I use?"
Mm,
Or do you think that would in itself be like a rude thing to not know?
I don't think so because I mean, for most people, you look like a foreigner. Like
Mm,
they know. And if you don't look like one, they're going to be able to hear it in your pronunciation unless you're extremely advanced.
right.
So I think they are just going to be happy that you're even asking. Um, yeah, I've asked people like, how should I like refer to you? Because there are some people where I've met them outside of school. So should I be calling you 언니, 오빠, like older brother, older sister? Because we're a similar age, but also I met you outside of school, so I don't really know if that's appropriate. So I just ask them, how would you like me to refer to you? And if I don't know, I'll just say she. Like it just means like, it's not like saying Mr. or Miss. It's not like at that level, but it's like still polite.
Okay.
So I'll use that. And then if they don't like it, they'll tell you. They'll be like, oh no, call me this. And so then just call them that.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough. Did you have any experiences of hearing something in Korean that you shouldn't have listened to?
Mm, no, not yet. I'm waiting for that moment, but not yet.
Not yet.
I've heard things where I'm glad I heard them that I wasn't supposed to hear. For example, okay, so one time my friends and I, we were on this like early subway ride back to our university from Seoul, and we kind of like knocked. It was like 7 in the morning, so we get knocked out. Like we're like on the subway, like our tongues out. Like it is not a pretty picture. And at the time, I was like the only one in our friend group that could actually understand some level of Korean. And so I was sitting, like I'm like half asleep, but I'm also like awake, right? And there were two Korean girls sitting next to me, and I remember hearing them saying Korean, like, "What happened to the foreigners? Why do they look like that? What happened?" And which is fine. Like I would be thinking the same thing if there are people like obviously did not get enough sleep.
Right.
And then one of them said, "Take a picture." Like they wanted to take a picture of my friends that were sitting across from them because they looked all
Right.
like
Out of it.
in Spanish like greñuda, like it's like they looked a mess. And I remember thinking, "Oh, is this a joke?" And so I just looked at them, being like, "Seriously?" And they looked at me like, oh, and they put their phone down. They were like, "She understood us." I was like, "Yeah, I did understand you. Like, I don't have to say anything to tell you because the whole time, like, my eyes are asleep or like asleep. My eyes are closed.
Right.
But at that moment, I was like, really? So I guess
Nice.
that would count as something I wasn't supposed to understand. But
Yeah.
glad I did.
No,
Glad
for
I
sure.
did.
You may have saved a
Was-
ton of embarrassment for not. They could have been on
Yeah,
a weird viral meme in Korea.
Oh my god, that would have been so bad. But I mean, I'm glad that happened because now those girls know don't do that. And also, you don't know who can understand you. Like we're in Korea. There are gonna be foreigners that speak Korean.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah, and
Don't do that.
Korean's becoming like, I mean, it's becoming like just as big as Japanese in terms of people wanting to learn it.
Yeah, there's a
Just
lot of
especially
people.
with the explosion of K-pop and stuff. Like, there are just as many people who want to learn Korean as Japanese now. Like, it's
Yes.
pretty incredible.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, this is actually going back to the person, the Jahira, who was talking about the honorifics. They said the person and I had spoken casually by American standards in English, but I guess I should have spoken more formally because she's older.
In English?
They said, well, originally they had spoke casually in English, but then when they had spoken in Korean, she should have been more honorific or something.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. It can be difficult to figure that out when
Um,
you switch between languages.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Did you? We'll end. Well, I'm gonna. This will be the last question from
Okay.
the audience here, so to speak, and then I'll ask the. I feel like I'm hinging on like some groundbreaking question. It's not at all, but it's just.
Okay.
Did you ever take a Korean class or any language class during college? Well, yeah, I know you talked about that. And do you feel you actually learned or it helped you in any way?
So the only Korean classes I took were in Korea as part of my internship program. And yes, they helped me in terms of like I got exposed to a lot of new grammar structures, a lot of new words. But at the end of like that time, I still was learning things out of that textbook. Like I'm still using level 3 books, which is the same level as my Korean course, because it moved so fast that like I didn't fully understand like everything they were teaching me because it was just so much. So yes and no. I would have rather preferred to have like learned all those things through self-study, because I think I would have probably learned them faster because I would have been able to dedicate time to each structure as like needed. If that makes sense. Instead of they would teach us like 4 to 6 grammar structures a week, and then the next week we wouldn't even talk about those. It was like completely different structures, and it wasn't building on itself. It was like completely new. So by the time like the next week rolled around, I have no idea what I learned last week. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
So it did help,
cool.
but in a limited way.
Right. You got exposure to it, but maybe it could have been done a little bit better, I guess. That's kind of
yeah.
All right. My question is just in terms of content wise, what are your like what content do you consume? Books, movies, shows? Like what are your favorite Korean forms of entertainment?
Forms of entertainment. So I guess you could say music is the main one, or the one that I do most often, because I can do other things while listening to it. But I don't really enjoy Korean TV that much. Like the dramas, I know everybody loves them, but like my phase of like enjoying Korean dramas is kind of like past. So they've become too predictable for me. I've seen too many.
Gotcha.
So I don't enjoy watching them anymore. So I don't watch TV shows, and I guess for YouTube, sometimes like if there's an interview with an artist that I like, or if they're for example like Young Namja, right? I'll watch their videos. And like half of it's like in English and half of it's in Korean. So it's like if I see something that happens to be like in Korean that's recommended to me, I'll watch it. And I'll literally tell it to turn off the English because I don't need it or I don't want it. But I'm not like necessarily actively seeking out different forms of Korean media.
Okay.
It's just not my style to learn
Gotcha.
with native media, at least not yet. I was literally talking to one of my friends earlier today, and once I've taken the topic in November, I want to switch to like focusing on more business Korean, because that's what my courses would be when I go get my master's. So I'm going to be looking for a lot of like Korean TED Talks, and I think that's the first time I'll actually be seeking out like real Korean media. But yeah,
that's cool.
Like that.
I watch TED. I don't understand them, but I watch TED Talks in Japanese for part of my listening practice, just to do it. Man, that's always I'm waiting on that person, because my favorite movie of all time is Korean. It's Old Boy.
Oh, which one is it?
Old Boy.
I don't know what that is.
Oh man, it's.
Oh, I think I heard you talk about it with Billy.
Yeah,
but I don't know what that is.
It's my favorite. It's like it's a giant like vengeance movie, like a dude seeking revenge, but like ultimately he ends up going too far. So I don't know. It's kind of a I don't know. It's just a violent vengeance movie. I love it though. I love that director. Like,
Okay.
His name is like Park Chan-wook or something like that. I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation, but he made an American movie. He made an American movie not too long ago with Nicole Kidman. Park Chan-wook. What the heck was that movie called? I didn't watch it, but
I'm not super into movies either. I sound so
okay,
bad
gotcha.
because people will ask me all the time about resources or I guess like content they should watch. I'm like, I don't know. Like literally the only content that I specifically search for that's in Korean is like how to make emojis for Kakao Talk.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Because I would love to learn how to do that. So I was looking up things like that because that content's only in Korean. Because it's a Korean messaging app. So I'll watch those and I'll watch like how I take notes on my iPad, but like in Korean. Those are like the few things that I actually look for in Korean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You're interested in what you're interested in. Same thing. I don't like anime. That's just not what, you know what I mean? Like it's
Don't force yourself to watch it.
yeah, because then you're going to create a negative relationship with the language, and then you're in a whole different heap of trouble. All right, so okay, all right. There was one more question that rolled in, and then we'll end this.
Sure.
It says if you can still answer question, having your experience with the Korean course, would you recommend course study for beginning, then self study for intermediate advanced?
There are advantages and disadvantages to both. So I find that some people really need someone in the beginning because they need help with like the pronunciation and just like wrapping their head around it, or they need someone to kind of explain something to them in multiple ways, which a textbook is not going to do, unless you get like multiple textbooks. Like for me, I self-studied, let me see, Korean and Japanese. But for Chinese, technically I started in class and that was very helpful. And for German, when I tried to self-study it, it did not work. Like I really needed a teacher because I just couldn't. I don't know why. I feel like at that time, like I should have been able to understand. I was like, I did this in Korean. Why can I not do it with German? But I couldn't figure out the sounds, so I couldn't work with a textbook because it's not reading it to me, right? So I had no idea what I was saying in terms of like, is this pronunciation even right? Like, how do I pronounce this group of 3 consonants? So it depends. It depends. But I think advanced study and intermediate study can be done through self-study. I just said the word study a lot. But I just got recently, for the past few months, I got an italki tutor for Korean, and it's not necessarily because I felt that I needed one because I love self-study, but for the topic I needed someone to correct my essays because that's not something I can do by myself. So that's the original reason I got one. But then as I was taking classes with her, I really enjoyed like the speaking aspect and like listening to her talk and like the connection with like, I'm not by myself with a textbook, I'm with someone. And when I don't understand, she explains it again, and then she like I guess I don't want to say waters it down, but like she makes it more like simpler and simpler and simpler until I get it, which I think is very beneficial. So they both have advantages and disadvantages, but personally I prefer, I guess, learning by myself first if I can do it.
Yeah.
If I can do it.
Right.
And then I guess when I need something specific, I do go find a teacher for intermediate and advanced.
Gotcha. That makes I think that makes sense. And honestly, and that's the best way to answer a question because there's so many. Everybody's so different just in terms of the way that they soak in information and what motivates them and stuff like that. So, well, hey, I appreciate you for doing this.
I think
it was super, super cool. I have anybody who wants to check out Natalia, if you're not here because of her posting, if you're here and you're unsure of who she is, I have links to YouTube, Twitter, Instagram down in the description box, so you can go check that out. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that, and who knows, maybe we can do it again when I start studying some Korean and see what's going on. Which that's
let's do it.
A long time in the future. So cool. Well, I appreciate it. Do you have anything that you want to say in closing, so to speak? I made a joke on one of my streams, and I was like, you know how Jerry Springer would do his final thoughts, and I said something about final thoughts like Jerry Springer. Okay, this is the second time I'm an old person. So anyway, do you have any final thoughts on the situation?
Final thoughts. Don't get discouraged. Like I honestly, I see so many people slide into my DMs feeling discouraged, but like it's gonna be hard in the beginning, but you just have to work through it, and then you'll be really happy that you worked through it. Because honestly, in the beginning, coming from Chinese, I was so confused all the time, and I remember thinking, why am I doing this? I'm never gonna learn Korean. But the only thing that was pushing me was that I was actually going to Korea, and now I can't imagine my life like without Korean. So just keep going. It'll work out. It'll work out.
Yeah.
Those are my final thoughts.
No, that sounds good to me. So I appreciate you coming on, and thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for everything. And until the next time, I will see you guys in the next time. I will see you guys later. Bye.